Hey guys, and welcome to the very first video of the basic training for After Effects. So this is for the people that know about After Effects. They know kind of what it can do, but we just are too afraid to open it up and look at all the bits and pieces of After Effects and how it all works. So this whole entire training is to just help you get away from those fears and dive in and be able to just do some basic things within After Effects to maybe elevate some of your projects. So let's go ahead and just jump on in. So I'm assuming you probably have Creative Cloud or After Effects somehow. So make sure you do download the After Effects project or After Effects program from here, and that'll add it to your computer. And then we're going to go ahead and open it up. So I'm going to go down here to where my After Effects is. I'm going to click on it and it's going to open up. So once After Effects finishes loading, this little window right here will pop up, and this is just a prompt to ask you what you want to do next. You could close this out, but for us, we're just going to open up a new project. But maybe if you're working on something, you could open up a recent project down here quickly and easily than having to go into Open Project and find it. So it might be down here, but if you're brand new, you might not even have anything down here. So we're just going to click on New Project right here. So once you do that, this is the window that you probably see. It could look a little bit different based on your computer screen, the size of it, and all that good stuff. So this is probably just a very default layout for your entire After Effects project. And we can go in and start moving all these windows around, but we'll get into all that in a minute. So what is this? What are we looking at? So over here to the left-hand side, you have this a couple of options over here. So a couple of windows, really. You have your project window, and then you have an effects controls window. If you don't see this, this will all be up here in the Windows option, but again, we'll go through all that in a second. So this is the stuff that you're really going to use the most, for at least I do. So in the project window, this is where you're going to have all of your files. So a lot like maybe Final Cut or Premiere, you have that section where you import all of your footage or maybe pictures or something like that. This is what that window is. So you're going to be importing maybe some textures or some backgrounds or some video loops or whatever it is you're creating will be popping up right here. So we'll get into that in a second. Down here is basically your timelines, and this will begin taking shape, and is really where you're going to spend a lot of your time animating layers. So that's what's down here. This is where you're going to see your main video preview, and we'll show that in just a second. And then you have a lot of stuff over here. We can customize and add our own things based on the stuff that you use a lot. So things like your character panel that you may be changing fonts, or how you organize your paragraph. All of your effects and things can be over here. So it's all based on what you want to put over here, and you can customize this how you want. So let's jump into just making this look like a normal composition so far. So we can just click on New Composition right here, and that's just basically saying like a new timeline. So once you click on New Composition, this window right here will come up, and you can name this whatever we want. So we'll just call this my project. And here you have the preset option. You can just leave that pretty much blank. I don't ever really mess with this. I just change my width and my height. So for this one, we're just going to do a 1920 by 1080. And this is what your screen output, your dimensions will be. So whatever you change that is what will be maybe you're doing 4K or something smaller. I usually just keep my square pixels there. Again, you can change this if you need to, but most of the time I stick with just these options. Then you have your frame rate. So maybe if you're bringing in some footage from something, you might want to change this. If you shot it in 30 frames a second or 60 or whatever, I usually stay around 24. But I like the look of 24. 24 is more of a film movie frame rate versus like 30 feels a little bit too clean, and then the higher you go, the cleaner and sharper it will be. But I usually keep it on 24. Resolution half, you can just really just ignore this. This is for your preview window. We can change all of this down here. And then how long do you want your timeline to be? So right now this just says 4 seconds. So we'll just call this 14 seconds. So just go in there and type in 14 seconds. This is milliseconds. This is minutes and hours there. So that should work there. And the background color, you don't really need to mess with that because this will be pretty much hidden for now. So we'll just hit OK. And once you hit OK, this probably pops up. I'm not sure if you will see a checkerboard here. This is basically saying you don't have any background in here. Once you add layers, this will fill up, but you can also click this little checkerboard down here and it will show that background color that you use. So let's dive into a couple of things. So over here, like we said, this is where all of our pieces and our assets are going to be. So you can see it even added this little thing right here to our list, and this is the composition that we just made. So when you see this little icon here, that basically just means you have a timeline that you can view. We're going to get into how to create more of those and the importance of these, and even adding several of these into each other. We're going to get into all that in a bit, but first let's just talk about what we're looking at again. So now you can see down in our timeline, this looks a little bit different as we have this plate head. And so when we put layers in here and they're inside of this timeline, you'll see them pop up here. For now, there's obviously nothing, so we don't need to worry about any of that. So just like a lot of other programs that you may use, they have a preferences panel that you may want to get in there and adjust a little bit. Let me just show you one important thing inside of the preferences panel for After Effects. Now, if you're on a laptop or something, you may not really need to mess with this. It'll still run fine, but this may just help your performance just a little bit if you have a separate hard drive or something. So basically, whenever you're using After Effects, it's going to start collecting, same thing with Premiere really, it's going to start collecting a lot of this data that you're being thrown at it. So maybe you're adding some effects or some keyframes or different animations, and it's going to be sort of chugging all this information on your computer, which is known as a cache, and it just helps the performance move a little bit smoother and a little bit quicker. But as a default, it's putting all that stuff on your startup drive, and that can just bog down things a little bit slower. So if you have a desktop with a separate hard drive maybe installed, or an external hard drive, it's good to use one of those hard drives as like a cache hard drive. Having another drive to handle that type of stuff is ideal in the situation. So to get to that and to change those settings, just go to edit. For me, at least on the PC, it's edit, and then you go to preferences. For if you're on a Mac, you may go up to the After Effects menu up there and go down to preferences. So this little window will pop up, and you can go through all of these little things. You can change different colors and the way you see things. I encourage you to maybe make your way through some of these and set up things as you need. But really, I just want to focus on this media and disk cache, as well as maybe your memory here. But let's focus on media and disk cache. So this is basically saying, hey, where do you want me to retain all this information as you are working? At least that's how I understand it. So basically for me, I have a separate hard drive that is on my computer that is not my startup disk, and I just have a designated folder for that. And so I would go into choose folder and tell it where that I want you to store all this information that I'm throwing at you for the time being. This is a great way to, again, increase the performance of After Effects. So do that if you have maybe an external hard drive plugged in or something like that. You can. Again, it's not totally necessary, but it just helps. You can also tell it the amount that you want to cache as you're working. You can change this number. If you hit that number, it just starts removing old files, I believe, automatically. You may get a warning that's saying that you've hit that limit. You can go into your preferences and hit empty disk cache, and it'll completely clean all that out, and that's totally fine to do. I do the same thing for conform media cache, and honestly, I'm not really totally sure on what conform media cache is, as I'm not really a technical person when it comes to these types of things. So again, I set aside a separate folder for that. Okay, so the other thing would be the memory. You can go in here and tell it if you're going to be strictly in After Effects for the entire day, you may want to go in here and turn this way down to say, I don't really need my computer to use any RAM for anything else. I'm all in After Effects today, so you can designate a lot more. But as you change this number, it may say it's only, it's going to limit your performance for other programs. So you really probably can leave this as a default. It's not all that important, but I'm going to hit OK. So, all right, so as we begin adding different things to this project, we'll go through some of these menus, but just so you know what we're up here, we'll go through them. You have your file, and we'll go through some of these pieces here, but we'll have a few that we're going to focus on mainly. So really, we're going to be messing with a couple things in composition. We'll be messing with layers. So this is where you're going to be adding different shapes. You'll be adding camera, little elements in there. Then we'll go to effect, and really I spend a lot of time in the effects window. This is all grayed out right now because we need to select a layer for us to add an effect. But again, we'll go through all this. But this is where you're going to find things like blur and distortion, color correction, and all kinds of stuff here. Even if you use any sort of third-party plugins, then you would see them here if you import them or install them. Animation, I don't really use this. Animation, I don't really use a lot of these here. I probably do more keyboard shortcuts that do some of these, but I really don't go to this menu a ton. Same thing with view. We'll mess with maybe some guides and stuff, but then the window, this is where you're going to see a lot of the effects that you can add to this panel over here. So things that you see over here, also you can see these little check marks. That's basically saying, hey, we have this turned on for you, and you can see it, and you can see it over there. So you could add a new window if you want and begin sort of piecing together how you want your setup to be. And then once you have your basic setup for your screen, then you can even save that preset so it's loaded every time that you want to use it. You also have this effects controls window, which we'll get into, and this is when you'll be adding those effects like blur and random things here. Then they will show up here for whatever layer you're selected. Again, we'll get to that bit. Okay, so really we'll go through a lot of these little things as we continue, but I wanted just to show you the basic setup for getting started with After Effects. And now the next video we'll get into will be more of adding layers and things like that. So jump into that one and we'll see you there.